All right, everybody. Welcome to Wake Up Happy Sis. I'm your host, self care strategist Leanne Dulce. And you know what? Today is going to be such an awesome day because you know what we're talking about today, guys? We are talking about self renewal. And I have my fabulous unofficial co host, DJ Sanchez, in the building. And I have two wonderful guests today. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves because I believe that nobody can do you better than you can do yourself. You know what I mean? So I'm going to allow you guys to introduce yourself. But I've got Dr. Deena and Coach Eleanor. They are going to be here with me and with you, with us, to share all the goodness about self renewal. They're going to give us tips. They're going to tell us how it works in their life. So let's start with you, Dr. Deena. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, absolutely. Hello, everyone out there. I am Dr. Deena C. Brown. I am the founder of the Leadership Institute, where we actually help up level your mindset so that you can own your shift. And it's all about getting clear about the what, being confident about the who, and consistent about the how, because there is a shift in the atmosphere. Do you know what yours is?
Ooh, okay. Like that. I know what mine. I do know what mine is, though. I do know what mine is.
Absolutely.
And Coach Eleanor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Dr. Deena. My name is Eleanor. I go by Coach E, and I am actually a life strategies coach, and I specialize in grief. A lot of people are struggling through life because they haven't handled the grief, and it's not always about death. Grief connects us in many ways, such as divorce, life things that happen, financial, all of that. But I do specialize in the loss of others and how you get a strategy to learn how to manage and take care of that. Even what we're going to be talking about today, as far as self renewal, plays a big part in getting you to the next step. And as I say, if you ever watch my lives or anything like that, you got bigger fish to fry. You got so many other things to do, and that's what we want you to do is live your life. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. And DJ Tony Sanchez, tell the people who you are one time.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, my queens. How y'all doing today?
Good morning.
Man, I am DJ Tony Sanchez, CEO and owner of the Eye of the Storm, located here in Chicago, Illinois. I am also the resident DJ of KCCR Radio every Saturday and Sunday night, 7 to 9 p.m. You can find me at KCCR Radio, the Brownstone, where we are changing the narrative of how we tell our story.
All right.
Yes. So, just like Tony said, you are listening to us live on KCCR, The Brownstone, on Brownstone Worldwide, and a plethora of other wonderful platforms. But today, let's get into this topic because I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about self renewal. Now, the way that I do this show, for those who may be new here, we're very conversational, but we keep it real, we keep it raw, and we keep it honest. We're going to give it to you straight, no chaser. There might be a cuss word or two that comes out.
Okay.
Maybe. That's just sometimes how it comes across.
Yeah,
But
sometimes I let them out. They just fly.
right, sometimes they just got to come out. But what I want to start with is kind of just what you guys see is what is your definition or your first thought when you think about self renewal and its importance specifically for Black women. So, Coach Eleanor, you want to go first?
Well, the first thing I think about when I think of self renewal is being true to why you want to do it and understanding that you can't let anyone's outside opinions, excuse me, guys, I'm stopped up here in Texas, the weather. You can't let people's outside opinions change what you want to do. I'm kind of in that space right now myself where I'm doing another self renewal that I really have wanted to do for a while. And I kept letting people get in my head. So that's the first thing you have to say. I'm going to be true to what I want to do. And I'm going to stick to it no matter what other people think. And then I'm going to come out as the person I want to be.
Oh, I like that. I like that. As soon as you said the word self renewal, I love words and just wrote down the word. So you'll see me looking down because I'm writing, and as we are as scripting those pieces. And so right in the middle of renewal is the word new. And so when we pull out that sense of new, it's like, how are we reframing, actualizing this newest version of who we are right now today in this season? Because oftentimes we are telling a story and we're looking at how to rejuvenate ourselves from an older version. And it's okay to go to our master blueprint, to our authentic, truest self. But when we're talking about renewal, you're not who you used to be. So if you're putting things in place and systems in place now to move you to your next, to shift you into the next version, you have to look at a new elevated understanding. And that's what I use alchemy for. So part of my process is that, how do I use alchemy? And I'll insert the first cuss word. How do you turn that shit into sugar
Yes.
and let it sprinkle over to sweeten the next best version of who you are right now in this season?
Yes, I love that because I share a very similar concept of what to me self-renewal is. It
Mhm.
is the rebirth of myself, coming through all the challenges, trials, tribulations, and the experiences to kind of make a sum total new version. Like Leanne, we just gonna call it Leanne V51 because I'm 51. We coming up on V52. Maybe I may be at 100, right? Because I can't honestly say I'm the same person today I was yesterday. There have been things that have kind of shifted and altered the course of my life, of who I am, coming into contact with different people that has totally reframed and reshaped my concept of myself, let alone of the world around me. So for me, that sense of self renewal is this rebirth that we get to have because every day is a new day for us to get it right, whatever right is for you.
Mhm. Mhm. When you said rebirth, just images begin to pop into my mind. I think about the purest versions of our authentic self, right? That sage self happened at birth, where we didn't necessarily have all the layers of other people's perspective and opinions about who we were. And so when you say that rebirth, part of even that process is going back to unlearn, take off, what I call the oxidation of life. And so that sense of renewal that you get from that in this new rebirth, and that freshness, that excitement, that enthusiasm. And it's nothing more exciting than hearing a baby laugh. And so when I think about waking up happy, sis, I
Yeah.
think about bringing back that joy as part of that self renewal and that rebirth process.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love the rebirth part as far as, we love to say we're born alone and we die alone. We really don't. You are born with 50 million people around you, and everybody's just in love with you, and you are perfect and you are wonderful. And then they kind of destroy that as time goes on, beating you down with opinions and thoughts and processes. Yes, you may die alone, but you're never born alone. Rebirth, you are born alone because you have to block out everybody's thought processes of your rebirth. So that is your reappearing of who you are. That is your reincarnation, so to speak, of the new you. And they're going to have opinions as they're watching you have your rebirth, because it's not like when you're renewing and rebirthing, it's not like you're just like one day you come out and like, boom. I think that's great if you do. But most of the time, it takes months to get to rebirth the new you, and you will hear some of those things. What are you doing with your hair? Oh, that's no makeup. Oh my, that outfit. You got to keep blocking that out, because what happens is then when you do come out, and you do that, bam, they're like, oh my God, your hair's amazing. I do love the makeup. I love how you're dressing now. It doesn't matter. I don't care, because
Mm.
I have become who I want to become. And during that process, you have to block all that out. So to rebirth who you are, it's hard, but it can be done. And you don't have to tell anybody what you're doing.
Ooh, that part. That
Yeah,
part.
yeah,
The
yeah,
announcement.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, I'm sitting here listening to y'all, and y'all saying some wonderful points and tips, and I was thinking, okay, when you we talking a renewal of self, right?
Yes.
Okay, so for
It
me,
can be everything. When you do body, mind, soul, that's a renewal of self.
yeah,
But when
yeah.
you connect self, you're connected to the collective. So my renewal is attached to also your growth and your patterns. If we all begin to work on ourselves, like work on yourself, you can have exponential impact because at the end of the day, we still are connected at some particular level, of that. Because when I can show up as the very best version of myself, then I can serve bigger, I can serve bolder, I can serve from an authentic space of what I see is how my role is. And so I think that that still goes with what you said. We don't really, we're born alone, or we're not really born alone. We don't even really die alone because the legacy and the truth of us, it still permeates the environment and the ecosystem in which we live in. So, okay.
okay, so but what I was trying to allude to was the fact that okay, for self renewal for me is first of all I have to start loving myself more because everything starts with me.
Hmm.
So if I'm not properly receiving the love that 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 I know that I deserve to receive, for me, I choose not to let what I'm lacking
Mm.
uh, stifle me from doing what I know I'm capable of doing because I know it's in me to do it. You know, so for me, renewal has a lot to do with self love because once I learned how to love me truly, I stopped doing things to hurt me. And when I stop hurting me, I stop hurting other people.
Mm.
And everything you're saying is real, Tony, because that's true. You have to have self love. But part of that renewal process for many people is learning the self love. You can't get to a place of saying, I'm going to do this whole self renewal and not have self love. That's very true. But that may be months that you were learning to love yourself. That may be a while because what you are is, yes, you're not loving yourself, but you're unhappy with everything about you. And
Yeah.
so you have to first say, okay, I'm going to accept where I am, who I am, how I'm handling things. And I used to do that. I'll get to the self love later. I'm gonna push through. I'm gonna push through. And then what happens is it stops pushing through because
Mm.
you know you're not confident, you're not happy, you're not really loving yourself. So you're kind of doing that whole fake it till you make it thing. And I promise you, after a while, that doesn't work.
It don't
And
work. And
so you
whoever
have to
came
go
up with
back.
that need their jaw broke. I hate that saying. Fake
It,
it till you make it. I
Well,
do.
so,
I
so
really do
it,
because
they
I
need
we
all
ain't
bro-
breaking up. We
no
breaking jaws with love, Tony. With
no
That's
no
right.
yeah but look but seriously though because I used to hear that a lot in the rooms of recovery. You see, I'm a recovering addict for 23 years clean now. So I used to hear that a lot in the rooms, fake it till you make it. And I used to, like just cringe cause when you out there in that lifestyle, you ain't faking nothing. So why am I gonna come in a room where I'm practicing recovery and fake it till I make it? I wasn't faking out there, so why should I fake in here? This is where I need to get real at.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that process of self renewal, that rebirth, there's the pain
Mm.
that you have to go through. Everybody thinks, and you'll hear me say this often, right? Is that self care is not always pretty. It is not always the fun things in the bathroom, going to the spa. Sometimes it's sitting in that shit and feeling those feelings and like you said, unlearning the trauma that's been passed down to us by different experiences, different people in our lives, the things that we have gone through that have now become parts of who we are. It's so ingrained in us because we learned early on that we weren't beautiful because we were dark skinned. Oh,
Mm.
you're pretty for a dark skinned girl, or you're pretty for a big girl, or whatever, right? And when you constantly hear these things, and sometimes they weren't said in malice, they weren't said in an intent to hurt us, but hurt people.
It's
You know
that
what I mean?
attention over impact, and I love the example I share when I'm working like with clients or I'm doing a facilitation or workshop, and I'll share that when we talk about intentions and impact is that if you think about if you're walking in the movie theater, this is the best example to use to really have it hit home. And your seat is in the middle of the row, and you got to get through the people. And you step on somebody's toe, they bunion at that, not just they toe, they bunion. And they screaming and hollering in pain. And you're saying, oh, excuse me. And you're saying that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I didn't intend to step on your foot. But the impact of what you did is still felt. And so I think that when we understand that portion of it, we kind of own that portion, that we'll still really begin to embrace and deal more um, with the impact of things and address it from that lens instead of just giving ourselves. Now, I believe in giving yourself grace, but giving yourself excuses for not owning your own shift, because you'll say, well, I didn't mean it, I didn't intend to it. But what's about the impact, and what are you going to do to shift that narrative? And one thing, if I can have a moment of nerd space, when we talk about the things, our brain's always listening, right? And so what we're talking about is this programming, these neural pathways, right? That has been embedded and it's stored like in our amygdala. And so when we are operating from this rote understanding, these lessons, what we heard auntie say and grandma say, and all of these things, when we have triggers, oftentimes we're reacting and we're responding from our triggers. And so we go, well, I don't even know why I did that. Well, because it's embedded in your subconscious space. And when you get quiet and when you are growing and when you are doing self-care and self-renewal, I call that your chrysalis phase. You got to go inside, and we don't cocoon because moths cocoons, butterflies form chrysalis, and we burn away everything that doesn't serve us. Because at the core is that birth that you were talking about. And now we can begin, and then we still got to fight through to get out.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's part of that unlearning. That's that unpacking. That's part of really understanding who we are at the core, and knowing that it takes a journey to get there.
Now, I want to kind of shift a little bit, Coach Eleanor, because you are a grief specialist. So, talk to me a little bit about, or talk to us a little bit about Black women and their need to process that grief and trauma, but sometimes our inability because of societal pressures, right? And how do we get past that?
In my experience, even before I decided to bring grief coaching into my life coaching, Black women are not handling their grief, which is why you have the wailing women at the church. You don't know why they wailing, but they wailing because the grief is real. They're wailing for their child that was on drugs for 20 years. They're wailing for the child that's lost to the streets. They're wailing for having that man in their home that hurt their child and they ran away. They're wailing for the husband that's gone, that has died or whatever. They're wailing for the miscarriages they have had. And so a lot of times we hear the wailing women of the church, but a lot of times those women are not wailing for you. They're wailing because they have not dealt with all of the unprocessed grief. And it hurts my heart. And so that's why when I went through mine, I was becoming a wailing woman. Not necessarily the church, but just a wailing woman because I didn't have anywhere to turn as a Black person. Grief groups were not taking care of it. Grief counseling was trying to look at 20-something years ago. Baby, I need help now. And so that's why I was like, this is not fair to our people. And we have so much trauma anyway. And there's a lot of grief connected to trauma. You got the woman sitting at home for 20 years because she was in a bus accident and watched 20 people die in front of her. And so then she stops driving. She stops living. And so when you have that grief space as Black women, I beseech you, my sisters, please go get help. Get help from a coach.
Amen.
And I said coach because we're dealing with the right now. Now, if you need to go all the way back and go all the way back, get a counselor. Counselors do things differently. I can say that in truth. I'm in school to be a counselor. I'm about to graduate. But for what you need now, you need that coach. Thank you. You need that coach that's going to come and say, let's coach you through this. And so I give you those strategies to get through it. And what happens is people are shocked. I had a gentleman come up to me and say, well, what stage of grief are you in? And I looked at him. First of all, it was rude because we get asked a lot of rude things as Black women because it's like, you're Black, you get no barriers or protection, which is wrong. And I said, well, I'm not in any stage of grief. And he goes, well, you got to be. I said, well, how could I be? They were dead on impact. It was a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
That's like walking up to someone who lost their child or husband or wife in a gunshot. There's no 6 stages of grief. Well, yes, it is. I said those were for people who had terminal illnesses, cancer, and things like that. Great research, and it works for that to this day. But this is why you have people that are not working through it, because we're trying to take a model for something else and use it for everything, and it's not working. And so we got to start sitting down. We depending on family, and I'm gonna say this with love. After a while, they don't care. They don't
Man,
want to hear about.
hey, that right there, woo.
They don't want to talk to you about your grief. They don't want to be in your
Mm-hmm.
grief. And you watch these lovely non-color movies where they got all these people supporting them and dead men sending flowers from the grave and oh baby
Yeah,
go day.
yeah.
That really doesn't happen.
No.
So we're taking these pretend things and trying to put what do you call it, put a band-aid on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have so many Black women walking around in a grief fog, that you don't know what's wrong with them, you don't know why they act that way, but the grief is permeating into everything else in their life. If that makes sense.
That made a lot of sense,
You
boy.
know,
Because
it
if
makes
you
a lot
don't
of
deal with them unresolved issues, they will undress you openly. Trust me.
Mhm.
What about when you're talking about that? There's so much that resonates as if we don't have permission to grieve because we're supposed to use our black girl magic, our constant resilience, our
Ooh, our
superwoman
strength.
traits, and we've been used to trauma for so long that we are anesthetized to it. That's the first thing. That's not the truth of it. I'm saying
Yeah.
that's why we then have these other spectrums of that and the substance abuse or things. It kind of you see some different sorts of behaviors as a byproduct of to be able to do that. And so I love what you shared is that we're taking systems that some of them are outdated or don't really work with the current what you're dealing with and then giving you the space to say I am going to process this even on my own terms and my own methodology based on my own lived experiences, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you have the people that want to fight you on everything, like you said, you're still connected. So you're still connected to someone, these your children or your mate or people you have to go to work with every day. So if you're walking around in this traumatic space, yes, drug use can come into play. Alcoholism can come into play. Simply no longer being there. You start not showing up mentally. You're in the meeting and they're like, oh no, did you finish such and such? You know, I don't know. And we in the Western world we don't give loss any respect. We don't. We're here in America.
Mhm.
Girl, they died yesterday. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. What? I haven't even done the funeral yet. Then you get a divorce. Oh, you're officially divorced today. Oh, good. Okay, but you at work and you shaking because you're trying to figure out how to be a new breadwinner. You have someone that had a miscarriage and it's 3 days later. Well, aren't you coming in? You're still bleeding. So we have no respect for loss of any kind on any level that people go through. Somebody lost their dog of 20 years. Girl, it's just a dog.
I
You
think
know,
that it's bifurcated also because I look at it from even a cultural dynamic. So I love that you're framing it around our Black women's experience because some very similar situations just really occurred even in my space as well. And had a coworker whose dog, that had, and they're traumatized. They had to be gone for, and it's just all that leaning in and, parents and things like that. But putting that to the side on the shelf, I want to really touch on that when we're talking about like that self-renewal, that understanding of our terms. And I think about like 2 years ago now, we're coming up on the anniversary of my youngest sister transitioning. You never think that your baby sister.
Right.
So, and you're going through that. And so at the very time, there were some amazing things happening in my life. And so, how do you process the grief of the moment and the excitement of this newness, this new experience? And so, depending on which day you're on, you're doing this, and
Yeah,
people don't
unbalanced.
understand, or they want you to explain why you're smiling or happy or full of joy when you're supposed to be in deep dark mourning, and like you're going through this own experience of that at the same time where you're really defining what life looks like for you. at this new renewal point. And I think that as you were talking about grief, that's what some of the things that hit. And I've had people ask, they said, how do you not feel guilty for your joy in the midst of your familiar pain?
Now, that's what I was literally about to say, is that feeling of guilt, because you're supposed to mourn, grieve for a specific amount of time. And everybody puts all these labels and all these rules and regulations when grief is grief, renewal, rebirth. Those are all very specific and unique things to an individual. No one can tell me how long to grieve. I may have been grieving that loss before the loss came.
Yes.
By the time the loss got here, right? I'm in that cocoon. And now I'm fighting my way out to this rebirth and this place of newness for me. And that also includes us setting boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a part of that renewal is we have to renew the commitment to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? To honor ourselves, to honor our authentic person. And that sometimes means setting boundaries in your personal life, in your professional life, as a community servant. And that changes the relationship I have with people. You no longer get to have a certain amount of access to me that you may be used to. And that's when people get kind of nasty. They get a little bit upset, right? Because once you honor yourself and you are this new person, and they do not have, like, this touches on so many different things that,
Oh my gosh,
you know what I mean?
that's so good.
Just stop. Let me let y'all have a
No, I
moment.
was just like, that's so good because everything you've been through is compost for your growth. What is compost but dead things that go back into the soil to fertilize
Energize.
and
Yeah.
rejuvenate? And so, even in renewal, something still had to die, whether it's a mindset, a perspective, a lifestyle, even some relationships. And so, when you think about the cycles that we actually kind of work and live in, like those are those things that I think that we don't really address when we talk about that renewal space because we're so far in there. And the one thing, and I'll be quiet after this, is that so many times we're trying to explain it and articulate our I am to somebody else, and we don't have clarity around what that is.
Amen. Amen. Well,
I love that. We don't. And I would say, in renewal, here's the thing. We keep talking about renewal. Sometimes it's not renewal. Sometimes you have never been who you're supposed to be.
come on,
Sometimes you
sister. Come
absolutely
on.
have
Come
never
on.
been who
I
you
am
were supposed to
terrified.
be. So you may be becoming, forget the re part,
Right.
totally new. And so you are in this painful, crazy space that you don't own yet because you're like, who is this
Ooh.
chick? Because sometimes you've just had enough, and who you are comes through so fast and so furiously, you don't know what to do. And we all kind of work. There's a little term called the lizard brain. I don't know if you heard that, but a lot of times
Yeah.
we work under a lizard brain, which is where we do instincts and impulses, and it makes no sense because we're not using logical thought.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to get out of that lizard brain way of thinking. If you ever pay attention to lizards, they move kind of slothy slow, but everything's kind of impulsive
It's
when they
calculated,
actually do something,
Mm-hmm.
And so we can't necessarily be that way. And renewal is one going to get your self-care and your nails and your toes done and all the stuff that's on Instagram, the self-care. None of that has to do anything with self-care. Self-care is mental.
Thank
Self-care is
you.
saying, I will take this day every week for myself. I will take this time. I will do these things. I remember growing up, my mom, she called it Fend for Yourself Fridays
There
from
you
morning
go.
till
Fend for
night.
yourself. You're on
And,
your own. The weekend. Yep.
yeah,
Friday,
and
Saturday,
no, she didn't
Sunday.
take the whole weekend. She had 5 kids. She couldn't take the whole weekend.
No,
And
no.
she had a husband.
In our
So
house,
it
it
was
was
Fridays. You didn't mess
on.
with that lady. And people like, you never went in there? I didn't want her down. I knew. Friday, she went into my dad had built her a private room. She went into her room. She really didn't come out. She didn't bother us. We didn't bother her. And we were really fending for ourselves. I don't remember my dad really fending for himself, but I think my older sister took care of him. And Saturday morning, she was back in mom mode.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up now, I realized that was so not selfish of her because she was able to give herself a renewal day every week to deal with 7 people. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's
And
a lot
so
of
we're
people.
out here trying to do all these things, and we're not giving ourselves any type of renewal, not monthly, not weekly, nothing at all. And so then we begin to be overwhelmed, and you look up and there's nothing there. And I wanted to touch on the mourning and grief part. When you're having joy, you'd be surprised how someone who may be ill or may be sick wants to hear something uplifting,
Yes.
wants to have you share the joy.
Yes.
It's the other people that don't. It's not the sick person, it's
Right.
the other people. But it's also those people that will keep you from reaching where you're supposed to be and keep getting into your head. Well, what are you doing that for? Why are you doing it? I get a lot of people that fight me about being a grief coach. And I'm like, what? Why do you care? Because
Right.
nobody wants to hear that, Eleanor. And so there are nights I just cry. I'm like, Lord, why do you have me doing this if nobody wants me to do it?
One.
And I get that from colleagues, other life coaches. I get that from other people. You're stupid. You're wasting your time. You're never going to make any money. And then I'll go to a seminar or something, and I got 3 people crying all over me. I'm like, I just bought this outfit. No, I'm just kidding. And that once that wakes me up and says, you can't stop yet. Because I
No.
don't just teach you to do it from your space. I developed an actual program that teaches you how to manage your grief. Because contrary to popular belief, grief doesn't go anywhere. I'm
No.
still going to have a
No.
breakdown probably next week on March the 10th when I think about my son. Because that's his birthday. He would have been, I think, 30 this year. So I'm still going to have to deal with that. So what I teach you to do is understand really quickly just how to manage the grief for the rest of your life. Once you do that, you get your life back.
Yep.
If you're
Yeah.
out here trying to get over stuff, you're not going to get over the baby you lost. But you can learn to manage the grief and how
But
to
why do
handle
you
it.
want to? So here's the thing, and I'm glad that you said that when we talk about this whole space. Like, why would you want to get over someone that literally had obviously impact, but you can mitigate the grief? Like I'm saying, I don't want to forget about like my sister.
Because
I don't want to
society
forget.
wants you to forget.
That's society's problem. And I wrote an article years ago, and it said, and the article was called like "When No Hurts."
Mm-hmm.
And so, no hurts when you say no to you.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so we get so busy saying no to us
Mm-hmm.
that we haven't heard enough yeses in our own spirit in order to renew, to reset, because we're so busy saying no to us and yes to everyone else. And
Yeah.
so when we start to look at that, and so now what I say, people are like, oh, I'm a people pleaser, I can't say no. I say, yes, you can. How about you just frame it as saying yes to you?
Yeah.
What's going to happen to
Exactly.
you as a part of selffulness when you say yes to you?
And
Well,
I
and
hated the people pleasing genre all of a sudden. Are you a people pleaser? In a sense, you are. In a sense, you aren't. You're actually trying to make yourself happy because you think from years of conditioning that's a good person. That's a
Mhm.
godly person. That's a person doing what they're
That's the
supposed to do.
expectation that's
So
been set.
sometimes that's nothing to do with pleasing somebody else. You go home and you're like, I did that. But then in a sense, you are so spent, you are so worn out that you can't even think straight. And because you said yes to 50 things. And like you said, we don't hear people to tell us as Black women
Mhm,
to say no to anything.
mhm.
And so we don't have a history of saying no. Other races say no in a heartbeat. No, no,
But
not today.
Well, the difference is this, right? And I agree with you that we Black women have not been given the space to do much of anything outside of be that strong, um, stoic figure that doesn't process any pain or anything, right? So we've not been given the space and the freedom to show our feelings, not just by society, but even within our own culture, right? Our own people look at it differently as a form of weakness and going and seeking um, professional help from a coach, a therapist, a counselor,
You ain't crazy. You ain't gonna see,
right?
and they go through that. But the thing is, your yes doesn't mean anything until you exercise the power of your no.
And no is a complete sentence. And I tell that all the time. It's a complete sentence. You don't have to qualify it
Mm-mm.
at all. And until you set those boundaries and you start saying no to others, like Dr. Deena said, you can't say yes to yourself because you can't say no to anybody else. And one of the things I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about are some of the ways and just give some tips or maybe your own short story. But before we do that, let's do a station identification. For those who are new here, you are listening to Wake Up Happy Sis on KCCR, the Brownstone and Brownstone Worldwide, where we are telling our stories our way because we're changing the narrative for Black and Brown people. So, with that being said, one of the things I want to talk about is tips. So, as a person is going through their phase, their turning point, whatever the situation is that's causing that shift in their life, what are the ways that they can practice and be more present, I guess, maybe more mindful, more present in activating that shift, this renewal, this rebirth, right? What are some things that people can do to kind of help ease that along? Because as we've all said, it's generally not an easy, smooth, and pretty process.
Um, well, I'll go ahead and go first, and then let Doc have it after that. Um, People might get a little upset when I say this.
Girl, let them get upset.
No,
We
turn
here
on.
to,
Like I
we here to
said,
change the narrative.
Like I said,
Let
we
them
keep
get
it
upset.
real and raw here. Go on.
Yeah, we
gotta
keeping it
You
real.
gotta quit taking your ass around the wrong folks.
Step
First
on the
and
bunny.
foremost.
There you go.
You
There
gotta
you
quit.
go.
Wait,
You
now
can't
say
go
it
around
again.
them.
Say it
I
for the
don't.
people in the back.
You gotta quit taking your ass around the wrong folks, and that's
That part right there. That's
your
what I'm
circle
talking about.
got you where you are, whether you want to admit it or not. So you got to step out of your circle, and you got to go literally find another circle. You got to delete them folks off Facebook. You got to get them off Instagram. You got to get them out your life. You may have been at that church 17 years, but has it served you? Get out of that damn church. You may have been at that job. Has it served you? Are you going to really be able to have enough to retire and do what you need to do? You can get the next job that may pay you $30,000 more a year, but you won't leave where you are. Is what you're doing in your company serving you? I had to sit down and evaluate some things that were not working, and that's where I'm at now. We're going to have to rebirth this company and rebirth the boss, because I don't want to have to keep going to have a 9 to 5 and a business. That doesn't work. You have to, the boundaries have nothing to do with nobody else, whether people realize it or not. The boundaries have to do with you. So I have to set my boundaries for me in my life of what I want. When I set those boundaries, they will then transcend to everything else and everyone else, whether they like it or not. When you step out of that circle and that circle is broken because you broke it and said, I can't do this anymore, the people that are supposed to be are going to stay and rock with you. And a lot of them, as my mom used to use her favorite words, they're going to fall away. And you're going to be like, dang, we was friends since I was 11. Homegirl was never your friend. You were just convenient in the place that you were. And the thing that people don't want to hear a lot is simply this. What it comes down to is you have been in survival mode for a long time for whatever reason. When you reach the growth point, survival, things you did in survival really don't work. So now you're growing, you're glowing, you got all this stuff going on. You can't even have the same conversations.
Nope.
I'm gonna not have it.
Ooh, girl.
Sure can't.
Look, she said that. Okay. Wind it up. Wind it up.
You know what got me when she said change your that circle? Cause for me, I don't deal with circles. I'm from the old school. I'd rather be an L7 square. You dig what I'm saying? As long as I'm square, then I know ain't too many people want to be in the square lane because they think that ain't hip. But that's where the real learning is, and being a square.
And then you got them angles in the square, but come
on. Yeah.
Right. So that was just so good. And I was like throwing shoes across the room that y'all couldn't because sis just like,
That was a shout.
You gonna need to get it together and catch it. And so for me, change is inevitable. Growth is optional, but the shift is essential. When we are navigating uncertainty, and especially
wait, before you go with that, say that one more time, because I'm about to type this in the chat for those who so they can see it, because that's a snippet, baby.
Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. The shift is essential. And when we're talking about that, people keep saying, I don't know what's happening. I'm navigating change. I have a problem with change. You have been changing since conception. You don't have a problem with change. It's the shift that sits underneath the change because you don't know what your position is. And so when you're on that journey, you're trying to figure out what's my position with that. And so my theorem is called the shift theorem of aligned movement. And the first factor of the shift theorem is self-awareness. And so what my tip actually is I have a 4-step framework to really help you really narrow down that self-awareness, that knowing of where you are in identifying that season. And the very first thing that you need to do is, one, identify who are you in this season? What do you truly desire and want? And I don't mean what someone told you could have. I don't care what was written in somebody else's narrative. I don't care about any kind of ancestral or generational truth that's really a trauma lie. I'm talking about, what do you truly desire? And you know it down in your shanana, and you even scared to whisper it. Identify that and write it down. Here's the two part. Identify it, frontal cortex, identify it, bring it out from here to your frontal cortex, right? So we're in our thinking brain, right? Our conscious brain, and you write it down in all the clarity that you can. And after you've identified, the next thing that you need to do is the inventory. And this is the part where you begin to purge and remove people, places, perspectives, and things that do not align with it. And you start saying, what's in my life? What's not in my life? Get that out the way. What do I have? Because not everything needs to be thrown out with the baby in the bathwater. You've got some things that's probably working. So when you're talking about this renewal, the tip is that you have to have clarity around what does actually make me feel good. What do I want to keep? That's really part of what I desire. And then the third thing is that then you investigate. Where is my ROI? My return on investment of my T, my time, energy, and attention. What is the greatest return for me in doing that? And so once you've identified, number one, you went through and you identified, you then you did took inventory, you investigate what's really still going to work for you in this season. Now you implement, and there's your action plan that goes with it. And you write this down. And at any time anyone asks you to do something, to be somewhere, to invest your time, energy, or attention, you marry it against what you already have written down and said, this is what I desire. And if it don't fit, then you need to quit, you know. So there you go.
I want to piggyback on that to say, be real and honest. Don't say yes to things so you can hope someone cancels and you don't have to go. Don't say, I'm going to do that, and then it's grinding and tearing you apart, and then you wait till the last minute to say, I can't do it, and leave the person in the lurch. I'm not saying they deserve anything. I don't know that situation, but that's not being honest and real with yourself either. That's still putting yourself into constant situations for self-sabotage. And you have to understand, you can't get to self-love at all. I don't care how much you get up and say, I'm beautiful and all of that. I don't care how much you get up and you singing Mary's song, I'm gorgeous, if you are self-sabotaging yourself. And what you're doing is you're not taking your growth seriously. You're not taking renewal of self seriously. You're still doing a lot of self-sabotaging habits, a lot of old survival tricks, so you can get out of things and not look bad. Well, I got out of that. I didn't have to do it. So people are not going to respect the boundaries. They're going to keep coming at you the exact same way they have been. Even if you're out here screaming from the top of your lungs that you're this new person, you're not doing anything new. Part of the self-renewal is actually being new in how you deal with things. That's going to be hard. That's going to be painful.
Like Tony said, it starts with you. You have to set your own boundary, because here's the truth of it, is that if people are breaking your boundaries, look in the mirror. Because have you been breaking your boundaries? And it actually most of the time starts with you, which is why I tell my clients, write it down. And in the very beginning, because it's hard, to do that when you hadn't done it before. I'll go to people, hold on, let me check my list. Nope. It's a no for me. And I do that with an intentionality, because I'm also talking to me. And I'm also saying, Deena, no, what you said is what you said. because this is what you said you desire, and you could go back and see it in writing. Doesn't mean you can't change it and it can't evolve over time, but you are hold the pen to script that divine narrative.
Yeah,
Yes.
I definitely push my clients as well for journaling. Journal that ish. Journal it out and get it and see it in writing. Because sometimes when you see stuff in writing, because I got journals every freaking where
Me
all around.
too.
When you
Me
see stuff
too.
in writing, you be like, dang, I wrote down blah blah blah. Oh man, I gotta honor that. I gotta live up to that. I gotta do what I'm saying for me. And that's where I do talk about that. So you can have a circle of 1 to 2 people. It don't have to be big, and they can be poisonous as all get out. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Whoever you're dealing with, if you are going into the same poisonous circles every day, every week, you inadvertently bring that home on some levels to your family. So it infects your family by how you're dealing with your family. You inadvertently bring those thought processes into your life. And so you have to change what you're doing. It's the same way someone gets out of jail. I've never understood how they think the person is not going to be back in jail in 6 months when you put them in the same neighborhood, same environment, same people, same things. I did drug addiction for a lot of years as far as working in, the rehab. I would feel bad because I'm like, sadly, I knew how hard it was going to be when they went back to the same environment. So
But
that's what we got to get in our head. Part
true.
of that renewal is looking at what we're doing and where we are. I had a girlfriend, I'm going to say this real quick, called me the other night and we were talking. And she said, when you told me to change where I was, and she moved out of state. She got married after having a lot of bad stuff happen. She's now on a path of finishing school and doing a lot of stuff that she wants to do. And she's older than me. And I'm not mad at her because she could not see from that place of 25 years of struggle and all those bad circles and people. And now she's just like, it's like a light. And so we have to be willing to step into the light, however that is.
Now, let me say this. So, age
Mhm.
does not equal wisdom. And
No.
people's life experiences are going to
Ooh,
dictate
no.
where they are, what they know, how they think, look, feel, and see the world, right? So, the first part, so that part of her being older than you doesn't really mean much because in that instance, she did not have the knowledge and the capacity to move forward. So when you're looking at wellness and self-care, there's 8 dimensions. And one of those dimensions is environment.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you placing yourself so that you are strategically set in position for that rebirth and that renewal? Because I completely agree. You can't go and keep doing the same things and think you're going to get a different response. It's like hitting my head against a brick wall and think it's not going to hurt every time I do it, right? So, as we're moving, as we're growing, just like if you're looking to listen to Lisa Nichols when she talks about her circles that she was in, she was like, I had to leave them behind. As you're going to that next level, everybody can't come with you. And trying to take everybody, you're gonna be like MC Hammer was when he tried to have all 100 of people he tried to take
Mm-hmm.
Went
out
broke.
of the hood, right? And he's not broke anymore, but that put a big hurt on him
Right.
because you can't save everybody, especially if you ain't saved yourself first.
For one
Real.
thing, and I just want, because Coach E was like nailing that part. And when we talk about sometimes that self sabotage, I just really want to point out that sometimes if we have a habit of looking outside ourselves for someone to blame, that's part of that ecosystem. Because sometimes the person you need to kick out your circle is you, and so you need to get out of that comfort zone, which has become your kill zone. And
Yeah.
so that's something too, that as you're listening, and if those of you are like taking notes, you're like, yes, I need to leave those people behind. I need to, how about you look in the mirror first? And if there's something about the way your practices and the things that you've been doing that don't align to who you desire to be, then you've got to start that work on you. And as you work on you, what will happen is that it will naturally start to fall off around you. But sometimes we will spend time going and talking about, pointing at all the folk who's messing us up, and we don't own our own shit. And I think that that's something that I wanted to really kind of hit home, because I know people like snapping it. Yes, girl, she had to leave, but sometimes you got to get out your own way. And
And
it's
I
really
agree.
Always, that's
She
that's
was,
the primary is to get
yeah.
out of our own way
Mhm.
so that we can become the best version of ourselves. And that means we have to go inside first, right? If you don't, and look, we could always harp on the self love piece because to me, that is where the foundation lies, right? As we grow, I had, when I did one of my challenges, one of the activities that we do, I have them do is write a love letter to themselves. And most people don't realize how hard that is,
It is.
right? If
It's
I
very
ask
hard.
10
It's very
people,
hard.
if I ask 10 people, tell me the five most important people in your life, nine of them are not going to have themselves on that list
True.
because most people think externally.
Mm-hmm.
When they think about anything, they never start with themselves, right? So that's one of the exercises that I have people do when I work with them is write a love letter to yourself. And she hit me about a month later and she was like, I really had trouble with that exercise because I I didn't love the version of myself that I was. And she said, I actually had to take that to therapy, right? Because sometimes, yes, we have to deal with the things that are happening now, but we also have to make sure that we are getting to the root of the problem and that we are resolving those 25, 30, sometimes more years of trauma that we've been through. Because if you don't resolve it, what happens? It just keeps recurring in different people, different areas, different aspects of our life until we come back and we deal with it. So, yes, I need something to help me get through today. But I also got to go back and look at yesterday and realize how do I fix and how do I heal that little girl that when I'm triggered, I go back to being 5 years old and that pain and that trauma and that hurt, right? And as we grow and as we learn to love ourselves, everybody's going to benefit from that. Because first we have to do it for us. We can't do it so we can be a better mother, right? Our renewal cannot be so we can be a better wife, a better employee, a better boss. It has to be so we can be a better person for ourselves because then everybody benefits as we're coming through our shift and our love. It's going to radiate out to everybody else. So as we kind of wrap up, I want to give you guys just one more question.
Wow.
There's not, there's always.
Oh, like we done dug all deep, Coach E. We been like digging all in.
Oh,
What she got?
this,
Oh,
y'all been great because y'all coming with it. Y'all coming with the fire. Like there's so many nuggets that I'm gonna be pulling out of this episode. Like, yes, y'all better listen. Okay. Did you who what's the comment about the shift? What? Then we're gonna talk about you done change that circle.
Dr. Deena was bringing it with all the earthly realms. I was like, yes, she was bringing it out in.
Yes. So
can I say something real quick before you ask our question? So I want to piggyback on your comment about loving yourself and all that real quick. The woman I was talking about, just so people know, this was a 2-year process. So that they come to understand when she left where she was, it was 2 years. You don't have to move, I guess, if you don't want to. But for her, it took her 2 years for her to get to where she is. So we got to understand this is not going to happen in 90 days. And I had somebody ask me real quick about the piece you were saying about not loving who they are. Self-love, you have to love who you're going to be or who you want to be. And she said, you never talk about being plus size. I said, well, I don't resonate with that because for me, I've always been a small person. So I have to get to a place that I can love. Everybody's not going to be Lizzo dancing around about stuff like that. That doesn't mean I don't love me. It means that's a piece I've decided to work on to lose the weight, to love me how I want. But I'm not going to love an unhealthy version of myself. So that was just something I thought I'd throw on to what you were saying.
Let me drop these 40 pounds. I'm going to be straight, sexy, naked.
Come on, girl.
Amen. First of all, see, that's I think where we kind of shift, we kind of split, Coach Eleanor, because I love all these fat rolls over here. And yes, that doesn't mean I don't work to make it better. But baby, I will be sexy naked as a fat girl. And if you don't like the rolls, you should probably look the other way
No,
There
because
you
I
go.
agree with that. I just don't
yeah,
agree
they
with
are.
that we have to continue to live an unhealthy
Yes,
lifestyle to
I,
stay that way.
that's where I was
That's
going with
what
it.
I was
Is
trying to point
we
out.
can
I
always
have gotten to the point. I love me. I love my body. I'm not so hard on myself anymore. But I know I want to get back to a size that I consider healthy. So no, I'm not agreeing with you. I'm just saying we have so many women out here pushing some really unhealthy agendas, and that's not self love either.
yes, and we always have to want to be the best version of ourselves, right? And that means getting healthier. So that doesn't mean we're trying to stay the way, because even Lizzo will tell you she's trying and she's actively working to
She
improve
does. She
her
gets
health.
online and talks a lot about what she's doing.
Right.
She does.
And so but I think that people have to, it's a gradual process. Like you said, everybody ain't gonna love their self day one, day two, or day 10, right? But we work on little things instead of trying to eat the whole elephant at one time. And I don't know why we eat elephants, but we're not gonna eat it all at one time. We're gonna eat it one bit at a time. And that's how we have to take our rebirth and our regrowth. So
Is
back to
that
my question.
is
Back
that
to my
elephant
question. Oh,
fried or
go
baked?
ahead, Tony.
No, I just want to know, is that elephant fried or baked? Cause I don't do
It's
fried
baked because
elephant.
we healthy.
Okay,
We
okay, that's
healthy
what I'm
over
talking
here.
about.
It's baked.
That's
Okay,
what I'm
it
talking
is
about.
baked. It ain't fried. We're healthier over here.
Okie
So,
dokie.
so my last question is: how can our wonderful audience find you, connect with you, and what do you have going on right now? So let's start with you, Dr. Deena.
Yes. Well, you can definitely follow me on all platforms at Dr. Deena Speaks if you want to stay in the know to do that. But really, what I'm super excited about is Melanin Talks New Orleans, and it's Our Stories, Our Truth. And this is my Black Women's Speaker Series. It's a global movement to shift the narrative about how we tell our stories on our terms. And if you want to throw a shoe across the room, throw it. And so as a speaker, I realized in participating in like TED Talks, they kind of want to tell you to be this, show up this way. And that's not necessarily how we tell our stories. And then they want to like pull out any pieces. So it's really about not focusing in our traumas, but really speaking to our strengths and our truths. Because I believe that every person, particularly Black women, our testimony is the answer key for another sister's test in life. And we need to unmute ourselves and begin to tell our stories. And hence, Melanin Talks is born. And our next event is March 25th in New Orleans. And we will have an Essence brunch coming up July 1st. So definitely stay tuned and follow me because there is more to come.
All right now.
That's
Yes,
amazing.
that's right before my birthday. Just so you know, my birthday is July 3rd. I do like brunch.
Ah,
And
You can want to
she
come
said I
because we're
do
going to
like
be
one.
talking about all our
yeah,
strengths, our struggles, and our triumphs and our truths.
all right. And now, Coach Eleanor, tell us, how can we find you? How can the people get in contact with you?
Well, I am Bigger Fish to Fry coaching across all platforms. Make sure it's Bigger Fish to Fry coaching. If not, a funny little white man will pop up with Bigger Fish to Fry. That's not me. And you can go to my website if you want to learn more about the things that I do. What I have coming up is a class on identifying self-sabotage. I sent you a unnecessarily long link. That's the only one I had. And then I actually have a self-love class. And both of those classes are this month in March, 2 days. Like I said, I'm kind of renewing and restarting my business where I've decided to give more. I'm certified in life strategy, so I'm trying to give more strategies to help people. And then if you need help in that grief space, we definitely still have that available. But I want people to start being able to step into who they are and seeing those things. When you start to see that you can do it, that you can renew it, that you can get through it, woo, you really do like, oh my God, I can handle this. So that's where you can find me, and that's where what I have coming up. And I want Black women to understand we are such a power together. We've got to start bringing it together and loving one another together. And all the traumas, we got to stop glorifying it. We got to stop uh,
Mhm.
glorifying the triumphs. We got to start glorifying the accomplishments because we hear so little of
Mhm.
that in our community. And so let's start screaming it from the rooftops. You're going to leave both of those classes if you choose to take one, especially the self sabotage. You're going to leave with tools and say, oh, I don't have to handle this way anymore. I don't have to do this to myself anymore. And we can get those voices out of our head that tell us what we can't do. And most of the time, that voice is us. It's really not anybody else.
That's facts. So, DJ Tony, tell people how to get in contact with you or how they can listen to your shows.
Okay, well, once again, my queens, this has been fantastically fantastic. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this platform with you. You can find me at the Eye of the Storm at www.spreaker.com, Monday through Sunday, because that's my regular platform where I do all my Eye of the Storm shows. You can also catch me Saturday and Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at KCCR Radio, the Brownstone, where the old school be flowing and flowing. Boy, I'm trying to tell you. Oh, and let me give this shout out to my boss lady. Man, congratulations, y'all. Look, the Brownstone Living magazine, the first March, all women issue. All women. So, man, y'all keep it locked, man. Over to the Brownstone, where we are changing the narrative of how we tell our story. And remember, y'all, we all we got.
Amen, amen. All right. And I'm Leanne Dulce, your host and self-care strategist with Dulce and Lay and Wake Up Happy Sis. And you need to head on over to dulceandlay.com. Go and sign up on that email list. Get all the good things that I got coming. I am working on a soul renewal small group intensive day. This is in very small groups, no more than 6 people. And what we are doing is we are helping you have that renewal. We're helping you create your action plan so that you know what you need to do to move to your next level and to have that renewal and that rebirth. So head on over to dulceandlay.com. We're going to get you all that information. And you can find me anywhere, pretty much on any platform at Dulce and Lay. Like Dolce and Gabbana, French, not Italian, but same thing. Still me sweet because I'm
Oui,
such
oui.
a sweet
Parlez
person.
du français. Oui, oui.
I don't speak it, but yeah. I got that name through marriage. So, but So I want to thank y'all for coming. It has been an awesome time with you, Dr. Deena and Coach Eleanor, and of course, Tony, my unofficial co-host. So up next, we got the sun. What is it? Lunch is coming up. So the lunch mix, we've got Nicole coming up tonight on Girl Your Money Matters. We've also got Marshawn Alanian coming up after that. So we got so many good things going on here at the Brownstone. If you're not tuned in, what are you doing, right? So stay locked. You can go to brownstoneworldwide.com. You can watch any of our shows. You can get the replays. And make sure you check out Dr. Deena, Coach E, the Tony, Leanne. Just check us all out because we're all dope. And that's just it. So thank y'all. Be blessed. Love and light to everybody.